There are a few things more inconsistent in life than a Jets quarterback or the Patriots defense at the moment, or just the Dolphins. Oh, right now the Dolphins are consistently losing games. But the Pats Pals podcast has proven to be fairly inconsistent. We haven't necessarily been able to team up to do these episodes, but when they do, they are an absolute joy. And we're delighted to have fresh back from Miami with his beautiful tan, Skye Pank. You were
Hello.
obviously, how are you doing? Welcome back to Pats Pals. Welcome back to England. Welcome back to reality.
I don't know why I did the hello there like I've been doing in the US for the last 2 weeks, putting on the extra accent. Oh, hello. Nice to
So,
meet you.
so do you put on an extra English accent when you're in America, or do you?
I think, no, see, I don't want to say that I do that, but I think that's a lie. I think all British, English people do that. But I think it's more from my side. It's an understand. A, you don't want them to call you Australian. And B, if I talk too quickly, like I've had a few drinks, that Cockney accent comes out, they'll be like, what's going on?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I find I need to tone down my Irishness and be
Yes.
like, and try to, like I say, because at home I'd be like, Jesus, he was literally bollocks, and the word literally as opposed to literally. Oh my God, like,
What does he have to
this,
enunciate?
yeah, the
Word,
subway was
yeah, yeah.
literally jammed. I find that's the way I lean, because the Irish accent, if I want to speak it, is so difficult to understand. I feel like with the London thing, you have a bit more to go on, especially if you're trying to, you know, attract certain kind of attention in a certain kind of place. Be like, all right, mate.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I was saying, like, if you're chatting to the barman, obviously, if you
Oh
want
yeah,
to
if
try,
you're trying to get a drink ordered and you're like, yeah,
yeah,
hello mate,
what
yeah,
what else could you think I could be talking about? Come on, to be
trying to attract attention. But I mean, there was plenty of attention. There was plenty of attention on the game as well. Like you said, obviously with the inconsistency of the episodes, which is fine. But we had the Dolphins losing already. They've gone from losing to us to now being 0-3. But yeah, I think just a general sense. I know we'll come on to it, but with the Dolphins, it was interesting. They just had this entire like, oh, the Patriots don't beat us in Miami, like we'll be fine. And I was just sort of in the stadium like, nah, today's our day.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think the last time that the Patriots had beaten Miami in Miami, it was Tom Brady versus Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2019. I think it was
2019, yeah.
43-0 victory. Is the biggest victory for the Patriots, I think, in the history of that rivalry. Um, but yeah, we'll talk a bit more in depth about that game. Obviously, I've coming out of from. I was able to sort of sit down. I've been poring over the film all week. I know you were there in the stadiums. You were on that Patriots sideline. How hot is it on that sideline, by the way? Is it true to what they say that when you're on that side of the stadium that it's a hell of a lot hot? It's really hot.
I didn't know that was a thing, but I think I overheard a radio thing say it was 105 Fahrenheit. So what, about 40 degrees?
So usually, I think I remember a couple of years ago was when the Vikings played there, that it ended up being 110 Fahrenheit on that sideline, and it was 80 on the Miami sideline. You have to remember as well that the away team usually wear dark colors because Miami always wear white, so that's
Yeah,
their version of a home advantage.
I
So I
was
was
suffering.
so when you sent me the pic that you were in the lower deck behind the Patriots sideline on the sunny side, I was like, that man, that's an Englishman sitting in the midday sun. He's not coming out of that alive.
Well, this is what my friend was like. He was like, I'm worried for you. You're gonna get a heat stroke. But they were selling lotion in the stadium, sun lotion. Sorry, just they were selling lotion. So there I was in the stadium putting some lotion on, and which might have helped with the tan. But it was yeah, it was hot. But I think I mean the point of Pat's Pals is to be random. But I think I say to you, I don't really like drinking at sporting events. I like to
Neither do
remember
I.
the game.
Neither do I. I'm the same as you. I like being sober at the match.
There's water, sun lotion. It's like but the knees is what got done. For anyone who goes to that stadium, obviously in Miami shorts, like face bronze, hair bit pink, knees sore.
Oh no! The worst sunburn I ever had in the stadium was actually when I was in Fenway Park in July. So it'd be fairly similar weather. I think it was about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But I had one of those seats on the top deck of Fenway Park where, so not, I say seats, it's not a seat. They just put like a bar along the
Mm.
wall, and you have a designated spot. So I was there leaning on the bar with hand on my drink, watching the Red Sox play. And by the time I lifted my elbows up, both my elbows had been completely burnt off the little bar thing that was stuck to the wall. And you want to see the skin was coming off both of my elbows. I was like 18 at the time, and we're like, what? How did I manage that? My first time ever going to a baseball game, and I'm going around with elbows that are red raw because I put them on this hot black piece of wood jutting out of the thing, because of course I'm an idiot. I have to just lean while I'm watching the game, being like, oh, big dirt, big strike here.
I'm locked in. But maybe that's why our players missed so many, even though we won the game. Maybe that's why there were so many missed tackles. Maybe they had burnt elbows as well, because there was a few fundamentals were out the window.
Yeah, right. Well, let's put a pin in that one, because
yes,
the Patriots defense is something I need to get off my chest, because it was funny because those NFL preview videos, the ones the NFL actually do themselves. I logged on to the one for Patriots for Steelers a couple nights ago, and the first thing that came was this Patriots defense is looking pretty solid. I'm like, you obviously haven't watched the Patriots the last 2 weeks. So we'll get on to that, right? Okay. But because you're in Miami, let's keep it with the Miami flavor. Do you remember the first episode that we were on here? We were talking about Stefon Diggs and whether he had the right sort of mentality, whether he was really focused on what he was doing. He was calling about Miami passing around some crystalline substance.
He's in focus, mate.
Well, there's some pretty big news in the Stefon Diggs world this week, and rather than let me say it, I'm going to pass the mic over to Cardi B.
Well, yes, I am. I'm having a baby with my boyfriend, Stefon Diggs.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. How are you feeling about that? And that this will be baby number 4 for you, Cardi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm actually I'm excited. I'm happy. I feel like I'm in a good space. I feel very strong. I feel very powerful that I'm doing all this work, but I'm doing all this work while I'm creating a baby. Me and my man, we're very supportive of each other. We're like in the same space in our careers, but like in different,
By that, what do you mean by that same space? That you're both doing well? What do you mean?
You know what it is? That I feel like we're really great and one of the best at what we do. And me and him think the same way. Like, it's like, yeah, we're one of the greatest, but what's next? What we doing again? We do it again. We have to do it again all the time. It's not like we're never like comfortable. We just want to keep doing it. And that's just.
I don't know what I like more about that. The last line being like, we're never comfortable. We just want to keep doing it. I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. But the fact she was like, well, both of us in the same part of our careers, I'm like, what, is Cardi B also on the downslope after peaking 2-3 years ago?
Well, Diggs did average 8.0 in, 32 for 4 on Sunday. So maybe that's why it's going well. If he's averaging 8 in other areas, it's probably better than averaging that other phase. No wonder Cardi B's so happy.
Oh, God. Oh, that's a good one. But I don't know. And look, I just obviously, this
Congrats.
Is oh no, sorry, congratulations. This is good news. And as well as that, I want to say the Chiefs can't have all the fun when it comes to the big, celebrity relationships. Give a bit some over to the, give some respect over the Super Bowl champions. We got Cardi B and Stefon Diggs, and in fairness to them, I actually think they're a bit of a nice match because they're both equally kind of nuts, but in a way that they suit each other. And I think it's gonna be fun. But obviously this has been a big thing in my world because, as you know, Skye, and some people know, I am a part of the LGBT community. Let's go, Brady Tom. No. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans. Obviously,
that was very good.
I've been sitting on that joke for too long. Anyway, so I have a lot of my friends being like, "Oh my God, who is this guy, Stefon Diggs? Tell me all about him because he's going on with Cardi B and he's a football player. You know all about him and I don't, all this kind of thing." So I've been sending around one clip just to describe what the kind of dude Stefon Diggs is off the pitch.
Finish this phrase. Leave it what?
In.
Name something specific. Name some specific people. Put it. I got outfits. Is this real? Oh my God.
Come on! What a guy! Come on!
Leave it in. Do you know?
In fairness, like
Paul, fair play. That was funny.
in fairness, like those Family Feud questions are kind of designed to have those kind of stupid. Like
Yeah.
it's funny. The whole thing is the question is designed so the obvious answer is going to be something rude, and Steve Harvey's like, "What? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my entire
I
life."
do like Steve Harvey. It's funny, man.
So yeah, so that's a nice bit of.
Have you ever, speaking of Miami, because you know they say like "Mami, Papi," right? Here we're good. By the end of the season, we'll have a full montage of me doing dodgy accents. But
Yeah, exactly. Here we
there's
go.
one famous Family Feud episode where like it's like a name for a grandma or mum, and the woman keeps saying the same word but with a different accent. She goes like, "It's Nani, Nana," and Steve Harvey's like mocking her because it's the same answer and it's wrong. He's like, it doesn't matter how many different voices you say it's wrong. So if anyone hasn't seen it, go check that out.
Family Feud. There's some great. It's one of those things of when you're like wasting time on YouTube, just flicking through things. It's one of the great sort of time wasters. Anyway, and speaking of time wasting, enough wasted time talking about Stefon Diggs. Somebody who I hope has a breakout game, because one thing Drake May needs is a guy to throw to on quarterback. So we've already put a pin in the defense. Let's keep the pin in the defense. Let's talk about what you saw about Drake May's performances. Most of this conversation, I know we haven't had a chance to talk about the Raiders game in week 1. Let's sort of bin that slightly because it's week 1. It's a bit in the past. This Dolphin game, I think, is a bit more reflective as to where the Patriots defense and offense currently sit. Drake May has a couple of nice passes under pressure. The really nice on the right-hand side to Ramondre Stevenson. Looking pretty confident. But what was seen by a lot of analysts as being a positive and how well he's spreading the ball. You know, Ramondre Stevenson, Austin Hooper, Diggs, Henderson, Keyshawn Booty, Hunter Henry, Mac Hollins, Demario Douglas, Antonio Gibson, all getting passes of the ball.
9.
You know, spreading it out. Ramondre Stevenson getting more than anybody else, which is unusual for a running back to get. You know, people are saying that as a strength. You know, it's a Josh McDaniel way of doing things. Make sure you spread it out. I don't know about that, to be honest with you, because I just find I think Drake May. I don't know what it's a trust issue on Drake May's side. It's a trust issue with the receivers that he's working with. He doesn't have a guy. Like in every team, you look at Diggs' relationship with Josh Allen a couple of years ago, for instance. But every team, the quarterback has the guy that when he needs to find a way to get out. Obviously, you can overdo it in the fact that we saw that Jackson Smith and Jigba, gets more yards than than the rest of the offense combined in Seattle, for example. But you still need to have that. We have the ball, and you need sort of a get out of jail play. You need somebody you can trust to. Who is that ball going to? Is Hunter Henry a parts last season, as we saw in the lead up to the Wembley game that me and you were at, Skye? I don't know who that person is yet for Drake May, and I think that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I actually think, annoyingly, I mean, it might develop over the season, but I guess we probably did both expect this coming in when you've got a young wide receiver core. Because even a guy like Matt Collins, who obviously was great, that we know that he was coming in as a red zone threat. So he's not going to be the dependable guy, like you said, on those third downs where Tom Brady would have Gronk, Edelman, Chris Hogan, and depending on the matchup, or even Amendola. But and I think that's where the key thing this season is to get to a point of if we can at least develop like Butte, potentially Carl Williams later on down the stretch, then maybe next year you then add another veteran to go, right, these are your 3 guys. You obviously do love to have a good tight end on the team, but I think the thing as well that I always think of when quarterbacks depend on them is more just early in their career. I know there is the Mahomes, Kelsey, Brady, Gronk thing, but there's always been other weapons around. And I think whilst Henry was that guy last year, that's just more I think quarterbacks trying to get used to the NFL. Let's go with a big-bodied guy. He can sort of look after me. But yeah, I actually did quite like that it was spread out. More so just because it was good to actually see guys get involved. And I think we probably, for the most part, offensively built on the first half against the Raiders and executed throughout most of this game. And I just think personally, I was just happy to see Drake May's probably best game as a pro live. It was pretty special to see him develop, and let's hope it continues.
I was going to say, how much did he pass the eye test? Because you can watch back over the tape and you can watch back sort of, areas of his confidence. He is a taller, we can both attest to this. He's a taller person when he's in person than he is on TV. He's surprisingly tall compared to when you're watching him. How did he look in the eye test when he was slinging the ball, when he's passing? Did he look like somebody who is really getting into his groove, because again, the context going into this game is that after the loss to Las Vegas, people are questioning. I think there was a report in the Boston Globe questioning the relationship between Drake May and Josh McDaniel. There was, the media were all like, oh, because this is kind of linked to the whole question of Bo Nix. If we're questioning Bo Nix, do we have to question Drake May as well?
Yeah.
It was kind of important for him to have a strong game here, putting up 33 points, and obviously one of those on special teams. But, leading that offense is still, not an easy thing to do. Again, in a place where we traditionally have not been able to win. We haven't won there since 2019, of course. So the eye test, Drake May, how did he look?
I think good. I think we know that he can make every throw. And I think he is the modern day quarterback in that you saw with the rushing touchdown. I mean, the fact that he almost looked like he had extra speed on, was it Judon, being chased down, and he sort of gave it the little side hurdle into the end zone. And like you said, I know they look, it does look pretty on TV, but the fact of like being able to feel the pressure, step up, and then that big play, like you said, to Stevenson down the sideline, those are all things that you need to do in today's NFL. And the reason I would say he passed the eye test more than being able to make every throw, which he showed with you had the Mac Hollins play action, and then obviously the one over to Butte as well, two completely different types of throws. But it was more the fact that there were a lot of penalties on the O-line and it didn't phase him. There were a lot of times where we hurt ourselves and he still managed to sort of step up. There was some adversity there and it was good. And I think it was one of his best games, like I said, just generally being able to feel when there was pressure on him. Because as bad as Miami's defense is, it is more in the secondary. They do have decent pressure up front. So the fact that he was able to handle that and then expose the secondary was what I was most impressed with.
Yeah, it's a good point. And as well as that, we have to even look at the statistical analysis, the fact that obviously 2 pass touchdowns, didn't give away the ball easily, didn't look like he was going to give away the ball easily, completed 19 of his 23 passes. But on the rushing game, it's one that I'm glad you bring up, because it's one key improvement he's made. Because I remember seeing a lot of times when he took the ball and had to scramble, I thought he left himself in a lot of positions last year where he could have been injured. He did pick up a knock. I was afraid that he got a head injury against Buffalo last year. I was afraid he got a head injury against Tennessee last year. Whereas against the Dolphins and a little bit against the Raiders as well, I think he's just a bit smarter in what he's doing. You could tell as well physically watching some of the tape. I think he's bulked up a little bit more in the offseason. And I don't want to mirror this with the Tua Tagovailoa conversations when we're all talking about Tua, how much weight he has, because that's fluctuated a lot. I think it's a slow, steady, reasoned development with Drake May. And that's definitely a good thing. But on the offensive line, some of those penalties were just were really frustrating. And Will Campbell had the same problem in the first week as well. He led away two big ones that I remember in the first half, and then as it went on, it wasn't him; it was other members of the offensive line. But lack of discipline is what you were not expecting from a Mike Vrabel team, and that's cost this offense in particular, and it's cost the Patriots, in ways that could have been a lot bigger. I think if Miami had the killer instinct to really kill down the Patriots, because, and I was saying this a couple of times this week already, on the Irish NFL show, is that Miami had plenty of chances to go win that game.
Yeah,
I know they had to build back into the second quarter, but you look at the second half, especially that last drive, they had plenty of chances to win that game. It was pure incompetence the reason they couldn't, and a good stop from us on the defense on 4 downs. Let's not completely disrespect the defense in winning the game at that aspect. So bad football kills you. As Ernie said on Julian Edelman's podcast a couple weeks ago, if it's bad football that kills you, you leave the door open for another team to come and completely tear you through. Like if the same thing happened against the Steelers this weekend, I think the Steelers had the killer instinct to go and take it, that the Dolphins didn't. So that has to be an area that I think needs to be fixed pretty soon.
Yeah, and that could unfortunately be, you'd hope it doesn't want to be a narrative all year. Like, as much as I like to say teams like the Panthers and Giants have shown some life, and they will be, we won't win a lot of games, but obviously there's a lot of teams in the league that have improved. When we play them, you probably know you can get away with these mistakes and pull a win out like you did against Miami. But when you're talking about, I do agree, I think the Steelers, as much as their defense hasn't lived up in the first 2 weeks, if we start hurting ourselves, they've got playmakers there who can then, get turnovers or get stops to get the ball for the offense. And we've got the Bills in a couple of weeks as well, So you just like to hope that over time we can sort of get rid of those penalties. And look, it's a new O-line. It's been invested in the draft and in the offseason as well through free agency. So that clearly had to be done because of how bad it was last year. And that buys into, the narrative of helping Drake May's development and helping his decision making by having these new guys. But you would just like to hope that with some of the veterans there, that they can at least, accelerate how this unit can play. Let's hope it's not by like week 11 where, we're looking good. You'd rather it be, once you start getting to your mid to late October. And then when there's cold games coming November, you want to be fully locked in.
Yeah, I'm just looking through some of the O-line now. Obviously, I think some of the penalties were frustrating, but then we also look at just the performances of, for example, Mike Onwenu. He's somebody who's I think his pass protection is really good. He was the sort of key playmaker in a couple of those really nice Drake May throws, including for that one that I was talking about, the Stevenson, and also for the touchdown play later on. But again, the run game is struggling a bit as well. Before we talk about the defense, let's round off on the offense a little bit. Your view on the Patriots' run offense, because Stevenson got
really positive. Sorry, but go.
Yes, but Stevenson got a lot more ground taking passes on those kind of wheel routes or whatever, and obviously that big chunk play. 11 carries, 54 yards isn't the worst in the world, but it isn't exceptional. We're still waiting for the breakout game to come for Travion Henderson. He didn't get a lot of touches of the ball this week, just gone. Drake May ended up rushing a lot more than he did, so maybe it's taking a bit of time for him to build into the game. But are you liking what you're seeing from that? Because I think, like I was saying to you before the season started, for the McDaniel system to work, and we saw this back when he was offensive coordinator of the Patriots, both in the Mac Jones era and the Tom Brady era, that run game has to be something which isn't, it isn't the plan B. It has to be a part of plan A.
It kind of felt like Stevenson this week, although he wasn't a pass catching back, but when like we had LeGarrette Blount, and it was kind of like, we've got like that sort of bell cow for this week, and then we're going to sort of sprinkle in, guys over the years, your pass catching backs, you're hoping that your Hendersons, and even I know Gibson only had, I think he had one catch, which didn't do much, but I mean, is in that they've all got their own strengths. And I was talking, it's kind of cool when you're there and you're from somewhere else, and then people hear your accent and they're like, they want to sort of query what you know about the NFL. And this guy from Boston next to me was like, I was like, oh, it's good that we've got like, 3 good tight ends. And he was like, I'm sorry, 3 good running backs. But if I said that to him, he'd be like, what? 3 good running backs. He was like, yeah, I agree. It's just good to have a balance, because obviously Gibson had the big kickoff return, but he also did have 27 yards off 5 carries, some key sort of moments. Henderson will get there over time. I think it was more one of those games we talk about seeing things live. It was more, there was some good game management. And whilst, they didn't light up the box score, anyone other than Stevenson having his big day, I think they made the key plays in the right moments. And it's fine when the run game's not working as effectively, when you look at the stats, when the passing game is working so well. Because, May's stats look insane. But I think there was still a healthy balance. And yeah, it was probably quite a typical Josh McDaniels script. But you would like to hope that as the season goes on, that we can probably manage that clock a bit better.
Let's talk about the defense, because I was looking at a stat ahead of this week's game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is a vulnerability there, because it happened when Geno Smith managed to find a couple of gaps, because it was chunk plays that the Raiders managed to use so they can build upfield before eventually striking for their scores. They only scored 17 points, but they still managed to get it done in week 1 of the season in Foxborough. Then there was a time where I felt like the defense just lost concentration, and the same thing happened in so many games last year. The same thing happened last year in Wembley. We were watching against the Jaguars when Gerard Mayo came out and called them a soft team. That you had the good start, but there's a lack of concentration of not making plays, not picking up men, not covering in the right spaces. Just felt like quite deflating. And I don't want to make comparisons to other teams in the league, but I was watching a lot of like the Cowboy stuff against the Giants, and their problem was that as soon as Russell Wilson got a sense that he could bomb it downfield, that the Cowboys defense were lacking in coordination, lacking in communication, and Russell Wilson could go bong, 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 down, down, down. And I feel like if Aaron Rodgers is looking at the tape this week and he's seeing what Miami could do apart last week, particularly when they got Tyreek Hill involved at about 15 to 20 yards in front of the line of scrimmage. There's a couple of really nice plays where he kind of cut across. He found a lot of room in the middle once he did. Tua was given a bit more space when the Dolphins came back into the game later on. But I think when they're looking at, they're saying, okay, this Patriots defense, if we decide to position our O-line in such a way that I have an extra half a second or an extra second to let our receivers get 30 yards down the field, I can go for this. Because that's what the Steelers did against the Jets. And you look at the stats, I mean, opponents have attempted deep passes on about 20% of dropbacks, which is one of the highest in the NFL. And I think New England has already suffered or surrendered 230 yards on throws of 20 plus yards, which is the second worst in the league. Like the deep passing game, you could tell that we're really missing Christian Gonzalez, who is questionable for this week's game against Pittsburgh. And but it can't be reliant on him. Something else is missing here, and I'm just wondering what it is you saw when you were there in person about that pass defense. Because when as soon as that ball gets past, it gets past the front line, I worry.
Yeah, I always laugh to myself when I'm in the stadium, being 5 foot. When I say 5'10" on Tinder. Calling people out for not being able to tackle, but like it was very, very, very like rookie-ish, or just like people missing tackles. And I remember when we've done our previews and we spoke, my biggest concern coming into the season was actually the linebacker, sort of group. But then for the secondary to also look, very like it was like. I mean, it was good that there was a lot. I guess there was a lot of bend and don't break, right? Like you said, you've got to give them credit for being able that once Achan did step out, they didn't then score. We actually did, stop them. And then also there was Marte Mapu got the interception on Tua on the 4th and 2, and then we got that field goal before that all unfolded. But I just think a lot of it was just like you would like to hope. Is it a case of new head coach, and you're just going to iron out the mistakes? But I do think it's a lack of talent as well, which is a shame. Our strength is pass rushers. I mean, they spoke about us being able to get a lot of pressure and get a lot of sacks. I mean, I know Miami were missing, I think, of their starting linemen, but I think it's more of a case that this defense is at a point where you've got to scheme things up to get pressure on the opposing quarterback, because if not, they can do what Drake May did to the Dolphins and expose their secondary, and that's what's happening to us. And unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers, despite his age, we saw in week 1 that if there is poor defensive play, he probably will thrive on that and be able to. And DK Metcalf, I think even if Gonzalez is back, it's an awful week for him to be back because he got burnt last year against Metcalf.
Yeah, because but even if Gonzalez is back, it's going to take him a while. Like he won't be at full speed. We're trying to keep DK Metcalf quiet, and I think you're fully right. And we'll probably is a nice way to pivot on to previewing this weekend's game against the Steelers, which for any of our Irish listeners, the Irish NFL Show hosting a watch party for that in the Tap House in Ranelagh, so make sure you come and join me as we watch the Patriots. I think I don't know if you can see it, I have my New Orleans beads with the Patriots thing on it. You were there. It's nothing too spicy. I paid $5 for it in a gift shop. But I'll be trying to, jazz up the whole outfit. I suppose just wearing my one singular jersey. Your jersey is pretty nice, by the way. Let's show the people what you've got there. It's throwback red, was what the Patriots are wearing this weekend.
Can you see the moss?
Yes, it's always important when you're wearing number 81 that you specify that it's for Randy Moss.
It's Randy Moss, yes.
And
my friend who is a Pats fan, but he was born in Connecticut. He doesn't he likes football. He likes football, but
Connecticut is New England.
Yeah, what I more meant was that he says that he's an NFL fan because he was born there, but he's not massive. He's more like UFC fan. However, he wore my other Randy Moss jersey, the Reebok one, and because I was kind of telling him about Randy Moss has had his full sort of like health recovery. It's cool. It's a throwback. I was looking for it. Let's do that. So we both wore that, and it's off. I think it's called Poshmark. If there's any American listeners, they might be able to. So I found.
It's not Primark.
No, but I found the white jersey that we spoke about in the last episode, but the woman's missing. I hope she's all right, but she ain't replying to my messages. I want that white jersey from the AFL season.
I think someone think somebody else might have already got their hands on that one.
I'd be fuming. But the guy actually in the stadium next to me as well, he was like, "Oh, what a great jersey!" And I was like, getting the proper New England approval now. This is good.
Great news while Mandy Ross completed his cancer treatment and seems to be all going well there. Like that's fantastic to see. He's one of the greats of the league, and someone does a lot of nice media work as well. And let's focus on this game because like I'm trying to map out is what the Patriots have to do here. Obviously they're at home, they're in the throwbacks. There's gonna be they're facing against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that have shipped 30 points in the last 2 games against the Jets, who in fairness look better than we were expecting, and it's the Seahawks, who in fairness benefited from a bizarre special teams play against Pittsburgh when the ball, Pittsburgh just weren't awake to it. Like
it was so weird. I only saw that the other day because someone pointed it out to me.
It was bizarre. I was sitting here watching it. I was like, I can't believe, like, it's one of those plays that were like, if the Falcons let it in or the Jets let it in, you're like, ha, typical. But when the Steelers let in something like that, you're thinking that's not very like them to let it slip. So I wonder, like, can New England be positive, saying, okay, this defense is here for the taking? Or is this the moment that the Steelers defense starts to get itself right? This is their get right game before they have to get on a plane and come across the Atlantic to play against the Vikings next week. There's a lot of different aspects to this, but in terms of Drake May versus the Steelers defense, I fear this is going to be a tough challenge, and the big thing now is whether Drake May can stay on his feet.
Yeah, I think just what you would think if you're a Steelers fan, right? You'd be like, hang on, we've actually hopefully got a quarterback who can at least be competent. Our defense is great. So like from what I saw, TJ Watt didn't have a great game in week 2.
No.
And I think Mark Sanchez who was trying to cover up, almost like just using past references of like, oh, he can do it, but like he was missing. But then this is my worry. It's TJ Watt. It's gonna happen at some point.
See, that's the thing. You see, you're having bad games. That's the exception. That's not the rule.
Yeah, it's gonna come. And I think to your point when you spoke about the Dolphins game, the Steelers' weakness is probably that they've allowed back-to-back 100-yard rushes. As much as I was talking highly of the potential in the run game, if we don't get that going, then you sort of go, well, maybe. It might not end particularly well because I do think the Steelers unit will step up. I think, but Alex Highsmith might have got hurt in week 2.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big loss.
He is. I think the big thing with the Steelers is that I think they have a lot of the younger guys, the rookie guys that normally wouldn't put a lot of snaps into this time of year, playing a lot of snaps, and it's going to be the same again this weekend.
I think we can put up points by exposing, injuries and in their team, and the fact that their linebackers haven't looked particularly great either. I think my bigger worry is, are they like, look, if Carlton Davis ends up on Metcalf, like we said, I think whoever it is, Rodgers is the sort of quarterback who will hone in on, a mismatch, and my worry is that I don't doubt that we can put up points. But I wonder how many they could also put up. We could be in a maybe not as high as that week 1 win when they beat the Jets, but it could be like a 31-27, or something like that.
Yeah, but I think the big thing, and I said it in the preseason when we were talking preseason about this game, and I think the same is going to happen again. The thing with Aaron Rodgers is you're going to need to hit him. You're going to need to hit him and hit him and hit him again. And I think that's where one of our strengths is in the pass rush. I think once the passes are in the air, that's when I start thinking, oh Jesus. But if we can try to limit the room he's getting, limit the time he has to make the decision, limit the time that he's going to be on his feet, if we can get maybe 3 or 4 sacks, especially in key moments of the game, try to be physical with him early on, I think that will dent what Aaron Rodgers is able to do. We have to remember, of course, he's still a 41-year-old quarterback. He didn't look particularly nimble last week against a Seahawks defense that was very well set up. You can definitely say they were much more organized than the Jets were the previous week. And even though, and the thing is, like, in the last 2 games, like, Metcalf has been deployed in a way where he's actually not going very deep. It's a very shallow, a lot of shallow passes, and he's relying on him to go yards after catch. So if Metcalf isn't being delivered deep, as I was saying earlier about the Patriots weakness being those deep plays, if Metcalf stays in that kind of being deployed in that more shallow role, then that actually might lean into our strengths, because again, Aaron Rodgers, I think, for a lot of the time last year, the Jets, even though it built up a lot of stats, a lot of it was not checkdowns, but the first cousin of checkdowns. You're passing at 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. And people are saying, oh, he knows the limitations. That's the way he's playing it in. If that happens again, I think that doesn't necessarily expose the Patriots' defensive weaknesses. And maybe we have a way in that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, do you know what happens on the franchise tag? Often me and Adam talk about this. I think DK Metcalf has this. People do think that he's a deep threat, but a lot of his time in Seattle are those short plays. Because once he gets going, he's a yards after the catch guy because he can't be stopped. And my worry is that as much as I think you're right and it plays into the game plan, it took in Miami almost 3 guys at a time round the ball for us to even get a stop. So I guess it will more come down to, to blocking from their O-line and how far they can get down the field. But yeah, if they don't air it out, then it definitely helps us. And you would hope with a 41-year-old that that's not in his locker anymore. But who knows? I just think that, guys like a Williams obviously had a big sack at the end of the game. Seeing Christian Barmore live, obviously he had the injury scare, but seems to be all right. Like he's an absolute monster of a man. So you'd hope guys like that can get to Rodgers, and then he does get frustrated. The game plan that you mapped out would be perfect in that if he's going for those shallow crosses or wide receiver screens to Metcalf, but then he's still getting hit on them, there's going to become a point where he's just going to be like, right, I'm going to try 35 downfield, and then we can maybe force a turnover. So it's about getting on our terms early, which I know is stating the obvious, but we didn't do that against the Raiders. I think we threw our game plan out the window in the second half. So it's about sticking to it and not getting frustrated.
Yeah, putting on our terms, that I definitely think is a big one. Go on, predictions then.
I've been quite guilty. It's only been 2 weeks, but I'm sticking with what we did in our preview. Obviously, I said the Raiders would win. That happened. I said we'd beat the Dolphins. That happened. I'm still going to lean towards the Steelers and hope that I'm wrong, because the only thing that makes me want to change my mind is the throwbacks.
Yeah, I know. I feel it's against Massachusetts law to beat the Patriots and the throwbacks,
I know, but we mentioned that hopefully when we have some guests on, for Pat's Unfiltered, Alexandra, she posted a photo of the helmet, the throwback one, and I messaged her and was like, "Oh no, I'd pick the Steelers, but now, all of my thoughts are now leaning towards wanting to pick." But I think we're going to be an inconsistent team in the early part of the year. I think the Steelers might edge it by a field goal or by 4 points, and then we'll beat Carolina the week after.
Yeah, I agree. As much as I want to try and be bullish about the Patriots, I just think that the Steelers, after what happened last week on home turf, when they were embarrassed, I think, to the high standards they have set themselves, particularly when it comes to those Mike Tomlin areas you expect them to be good on, when it comes to, good defensive play, being disciplined, and of course the not knowing the rules well enough to let that ridiculous special teams play in. It screams too much of a reaction game here before and knowing for well they need it now, because Croke Park isn't the best place for reaction. You need to just play the moment when you're playing abroad. So I agree. I'm going for Steelers win here, probably again by field goal. I think it's be close, but I think it's going to be a very entertaining game, as there has been plenty of entertaining games between the Patriots and the Steelers. I've always told you this is the battle of the 6 rings. This is a real blue bloods message. Of course, the Steelers 6 rings are back in the 70s. Do they even count if they didn't happen this century?
Pre-salary cap don't count, does it?
Pre-salary cap. It's exactly the same way that I was about to say the same way that Premier League's that league titles don't count for the Premier League. But I'm a Liverpool fan. I definitely don't want to make that argument. You're right. So pre-salary, in the salary cap era, as Patriots coming in with 6 Super Bowls.
Terry Bradshaw is now an enemy. Sorry, we joke about in the episodes how I always make enemies of people who are not going to listen. He's now off the list. What?
I know. Yeah, put on Terry Bradshaw.
4 rings? Yeah, 4.
Yeah. Terry Bradshaw won 4. Yeah, Terry Bradshaw. I don't know how much to believe this, but supposedly, and there's a newspaper clipping to prove it from the time. is that when he needed to go to the doctor, but obviously he didn't want to use his actual name because he wanted there to be mania, he would call himself by another initial of TB. And the story goes that the alias he used was a Mr. Thomas Brady.
No.
I think that's too good to be true. I think a genuine. It's the kind of thing that gets floated about, and I think he said it on Fox a couple of times. You know, Tom Brady now also being on Fox.
Wow.
My annoyance with Tom Brady's commentary career, by the way, let's pin that for next week because all I'm saying, right? All I'm saying, he comes to Raiders play against Patriots week 1. Brady is in New England getting a statue released, you know, in Foxborough. Yeah. Probably not the best idea. He's in calling the Commanders game, and the Raiders, I believe, play the Commanders this weekend.
Yeah.
This weekend, Tom Brady is calling the Bears game. Guess who the Raiders play next week?
Oh, really?
The Raiders play the Bears. The Raiders play the Bears next week, and this week, Tom Brady is in the booth for the Bears when they play against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
because he seems to call Brady seems to call a lot of Cowboys games. I think he called 3 in a row when he started last year.
Yeah, there's something I would call certain games, but that is interesting considering the Raiders are playing a few of these.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
It blew up on social media when they saw him in the you know when the ESPN cameras cut to him up in the press box watching. It was kind of a bit weird knowing full well the day previous he was commentating on Eagles Chiefs. The Chiefs being a team that will play against the Raiders twice this year. But anyway, that's
the only look. I know we'll say that the only thing I would defend him on is in like I know because he's a minority owner and it's Tom Brady will always be heightened in scrutiny. But I think look, Tony Romo is a commentator. He might not be directly linked with a team, but he could pass info. He wouldn't, but he's got an allegiance to Dallas. All of these guys have played for former teams. I think they're professional enough in their job to not do that. But this is just me being Brady can do no wrong.
Well, supposedly Brady they had to deny that Brady was having weekly calls with Chip Kelly about the offense, which I don't know if I believe they would because why would Chip Kelly need to talk to Tom Brady every week? I don't know. It's a weird one. Anyway. We're both saying the Steelers will win this one, but there's been a lot of great ones. You like going down memory lane. You're a much better football historian than I am, and when it comes to this particular matchup, there's been a lot of great ones, particularly in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, 2017 probably even for yourself, is the one that stands out to me in recent memory, where we then went up to beat the Atlanta Falcons. Tom Brady throughout his whole career just owned the Steelers, right? It was just, I say this all the time. I've got a good friend of mine, Gary, who's a Steelers fan. There's Fred from the franchise tag, and he knows how much and when I say that I don't like them, it's more because just like, they're just one of those teams that only really won the part. You know the way that people feel about the Cowboys? That's probably how I feel about the Steelers.
You're one of the few people who doesn't feel that about the Cowboys, by the way.
You love the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm a weird one in that I also have the same thing with the Steelers. The Steelers, it's like the big teams are always the disliked ones. Nobody likes Liverpool, nobody likes Man United, nobody likes Chelsea or Arsenal. So nobody likes Steelers, nobody likes the Niners, nobody likes the Cowboys, and nobody likes the Patriots. So it's kind of that relationship. But obviously the Steelers have put so much stuff into Ireland that's probably changed my opinion on them a little bit. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, but like the 27, I know we said about maybe talking about games that stood out, but I think between we say the second half of the Pats dynasty in the 2010s, the Pats were I think 7-2 against the Steelers. I was reading up, but that 2017.
Yeah, Tom Brady is 9-3 in his career against the Steelers as a Patriot, and an 0-1 against the Steelers as a Buccaneer.
But that championship game, if you remember, that was the one where everyone was talking up about Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Big Ben. And even though the score was 36-17, we were 36-9 up. There was the famous flea flicker play to Chris Hogan. Le'Veon Bell did get injured early in the game, but it was just, I think at the time it was one of Brady's best postseason performances. I actually dug out an old blog post that I did. And at that point in time, he'd thrown 22 touchdowns and no picks against Mike Tomlin-led Steelers teams in 7 career meetings. And for anyone who loves a history lesson, that was more, there was a defensive coordinator, Dick LeBeau, who was like massive with the Steelers. And he was probably a pioneer for the whole, zone defenses, zone blitz. But anyone who followed Tom Brady's career, he thrived against playing against zone defenses because it was just a lot easier to sort of pick those, weak spots and be able to do that. And that's why he frequently put up, strong numbers in terms of pass completions, touchdowns, because of just how quick he was at reading the game. And I just think over the years, we've always been good at beating them, and that's been great. There's been the only other one that maybe I'm trying to think if there was maybe when I was first watching the NFL, maybe around 2004, there was another championship game when the Steelers had been on a pretty crazy run.
That was in the lead up to
41-27 or something.
That was in the lead up, I think, to the third, the dynasty Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah, when we then beat the Eagles, I think that's why.
In Jacksonville.
Yeah. So again, when you get in these things of your first sort of year watching it along those times, or first, second, and then you think, oh, these guys have supposedly won X amount of games, then we go walk into the their place and destroy them, and then do it again, 13 years later. It's just I've always quite enjoyed the matchups and the way that we've come out on top. So whilst we've both said that won't happen, you would like to hope that, we can have another big, meaningful game in the future. But this Sunday is meaningful.
That I think that season, that 2016 season when the Steelers made it to the AFC Championship game, that's the last year that the Steelers have won a playoff game, despite the fact that they haven't had a losing season in the Mike Tomlin era. It was just
I didn't rate any of them either. It sounds horrible. I always thought, obviously, Big Ben had a great arm, but I always thought that, the way people would make a narrative of Brady defenses helping him win Super Bowls, that clearly wasn't the case when you get 7. But Big Ben, in a way, did come from that and a strong run game. And then Antonio Brown had a really quiet game in that championship game I'm referencing. And then Bell, as great as he was in the regular season, I think he might have had 4 playoff matchups in his career, and he didn't really do much. It was a typical, they were a regular season team. And at the time, that felt like a harsh criticism of the Steelers. But as you said, if we're talking almost 10 years now and they've not won a game, that's where their franchise is at.
There's a lot of regular season teams, the Chargers have proven themselves to be a regular season team. The Cowboys have proven themselves to be a regular season team. The Dolphins, when they're good, are a regular season team and can't get any further. The Jets aren't even a regular season team. So, there's plenty of crack to go around. All right, I think that's it for us. I'm looking forward to watching this game in the bar on Sunday. Where will you be watching it?
I have had a heavy couple of weeks. As in
last week you were in Miami, the week previous you were in Wisconsin. Yeah, you've been. You could do it, and next week you'll be in Dublin.
I'm not there. Obviously, anyone should pop down to the event and join you. I would love to be there, and it does up nicely for you to see to do this event and watch the Pats play the Steelers, and then the Steelers to be in Ireland. It's pretty cool for it to all sort of happen. But I think I don't know. I might watch it. I've neglected my fantasy football teams a bit when I'm in the US, which is weird. You think that being on those time zones would give me more time, but it actually doesn't, because things are day.
Yeah.
So I reckon I'll be indoors.
If you think about it, if you're waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning, no matter what time zone you're in, you go from everything you have until 6 o'clock on Sunday to now, I have to get it done by 1.
Yeah.
Or 12 o'clock as it was Central Time. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I get it.
And when you've had a big Saturday night watching the Badgers.
The Wisconsin Badgers, by the way, in case anybody was wondering the Badgers.
Yes.
College football team. Lost to Alabama last week.
And then you wake up. Yeah, they didn't look good. And then you wake up and you think, I've got to set my lineup. And then, I'll for now, Shane, I'll watch it indoors. We'll let the people know.
Well, if anybody has a really good party that Skye can watch the game to, please invite him. He'll be wearing his Randy Moss jersey. He'll be good crack. But for now, thank you very much for listening to Pat's Pals. We will reconvene next week if we get the time. I'm sure we'll find the time. Obviously, I'm up the walls with preparation for the Dublin game, but I'm sure after us beating the Steelers, I'll definitely want to get a chance for us to come on and talk about it, Skye, won't you?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll have a few exciting games. Be excited when we preview the Bills in a couple of weeks. Let's hope that we're both wrong this week and that we're 3-1 going into that. Never know.
Yeah, I'm gonna be staying up to watch that one as well. And then obviously me and you will be watching Patriots Panthers together in Dublin next week. That should be good fun. But for now, thank you for listening to Pat's Pals.
Thank you.
Hey.